Today's episode is about the brutal killing of a little girl from Cloverdale. Cloverdale is a small and peaceful town in the city of Surrey, British Columbia, Canada. This place is known for its close-knit community and is a vibrant place to live in. However, this was shattered by an unimaginable tragedy on October 1, 2000. Heather Thomas, a beautiful young 10-year-old girl, with her whole life ahead of her, fell victim to a heinous crime. The perpetrator was Shane Ertmoed, a person known by some in the community. As shock and grief flowed through Cloverdale, members of the community struggled to comprehend the depths of this tragic event. The fateful day started like any other for Heather Thomas, full of innocence and dreams. While out to play, she happened to meet Shane Ertmoed, a neighbor from the locality. Tragically, what began as a chance encounter took a dark turn, resulting in the loss of Heather's life. The exact details of the events that transpired are harrowing and will forever haunt the memories of family, friends, media, and all those involved. Heather's father Patrick and wife Jody were estranged and lived separately. They both shared the custody of their children, Heather and 8-year-old Chris. On the day of the incident being weekend, both children were at Patrick's residence. Patrick had been busy working on some wooden fixtures in his residence, while both Heather and Chris went out at around 4:30 p.m. to play outside in and around the complex. Patrick had instructed both kids to be back home by 5:30 p.m. As per the custody schedule, they were then supposed to go back to their mother. When Chris came back without Heather, Patrick went out in search for her. Heather had borrowed a bicycle from a friend that evening and was riding around. However, same was found abandoned close by. Patrick was now joined by his neighbors in the search of missing Heather. The police too came in and an extensive search was carried out. On this particular day being Sunday, the spacious parking lot near the residence became a huge flea market that had hundreds of people. It was like looking for a needle in the haystack. By morning next day, more volunteers joined in the search. Bloodhound dogs and helicopters were put in for search. It turned out to be one among the largest searches ever led by the RCMP in Canada. In this case, a girl could have been a possible homicide victim, and the fact that she was still missing was investigators' nightmare and the parents' too. The worst fear finally turned to be true. On October 24th, her dead body was found in the Alouette Lake, Golden Ears Park. The body was placed in a hockey bag. Unbearable calm surrounded the place. The grief was huge for the family and community. The media cover was extensive and the disappearance remained top news over TV for many days. The wide coverage generated many leads in the case. A suspiciously parked car was notified to the officials in the following days. The car was a green 1971 Chevrolet Impala. More sightings of the car poured in and the officials decided to investigate more. The car was registered in the name of Mr. Shane Ertmoed. He was also a close match to a sketch made by one of the park ground workers. The officers now strongly believed that Ertmoed had something to do with the disappearance of Heather. They now wanted to carry out an extensive search of the residence of Ertmoed. They believed that he may have killed her inside his home. So, they needed to examine his residence and vehicle, which was most likely the crime scene for forensic clues. While searching the residence, the investigators came across two sets of receipts dated October 1st. It appeared as if an alibi was in the making. The receipts were from the gas station with time stamped for 5:20 p.m., and the other one was a movie receipt for a 7 p.m. show. The movie was The Exorcist. Officers now believed they had their final catch in the disappearance of Heather. Meanwhile, Dr. David Charlesworth at Royal Columbian Hospital conducted an autopsy on Heather on October 26th. He could not determine the cause of death as water had destroyed the tissue needed for the findings. There was no sign of sexual trauma in the vaginal area. The DNA swabs taken were of little help due to the water contamination. Now, the only way to figure out what happened to Heather was to find out from Shane himself. It turned out to be a huge hurdle here. The officers had a tough task ahead to link him to the disappearance with circumstantial evidence. The investigating team in Vernon, where he lived earlier, uncovered more details and found that Shane had a police record of being a sex offender. Investigation further revealed that Shane had placed the body in a hockey bag to dispose of. He placed it in the woods near Golden Ears Park initially on October 1st itself and then got scared when the search continued. So, he went back to check early on October 2nd, and as he was getting late for work, he thought of coming back and moving the body later. So, while at work, he feigned headache and left at 10 a.m. He went straight to a store and purchased an inflatable water raft and a paddle. This was proved with the purchase he made at the store. He then moved the body from the woods to the boat and took it far from everyone's sight in the water. This is when his car was spotted for a second time at the spot. After putting her in water, he came back and dumped the water raft. This could never be retrieved though. His being at the woods was also proved by the sketch made by one of the park workers who had sighted him at the spot. Officers found that he never went to watch the movie. Filling the gas and buying movie ticket was just an act of creating alibi for himself. Also, he was questioned on his motive behind shifting to new residence immediately after the disappearance. Shane was taken into custody for questioning on the night of November 3rd. He had his emotions well under control. Sustained interrogation revealed his sinister deeds. Next morning, on November 4th, he was put to 3-hour grilling. He kept denying initially and kept quoting his alibis. In the end, he broke and narrated the whole story. Heather was clothed partially when discovered. This was corroborated by Shane too, something only a killer would know as the information was withheld by the probing team. Shane took Heather to his residence on the pretext of showing some pictures of birds. He then tried to molest the unsuspecting child. Heather raised an alarm. In order to muffle her screams, he covered her mouth and nose that eventually killed her. The trial continued for next couple of years, and he was finally convicted for a first-degree murder on August 29, 2002. Judge Oppel sentenced him to life in prison without parole for 25 years. Judge Oppel said,
"You have been found guilty of the most horrific crime in law. You murdered a 10-year-old simply to satisfy your sexual desires."
Heather's father Patrick continued to live as a carpenter. Her mother Jody has severed all ties with Patrick and his family. Heather's brother Chris now lives with mother Jody. Heather would have been 33 years old this year. We as individuals can't reverse what has happened. Even after all these years, the thought of a young child going through such painful death is very disturbing. She was out there in the residential complex to play like any child of her age would do. Remember, crime never pays. Thank you all for watching. I will come back with another investigation soon.